BARK Radio.
What's good, everybody? It's Robo from All Bark here, back with another video, and today I'm doing my college football non-playoff bowl picks. I will be dropping a video going on strictly the college football playoffs and going over a bracket prediction, going way more in depth in those games. But before we get into this video, let's go ahead and recap the season as a whole on the channel. We wrapped up the regular season heavily in the green against the spread for the third year in a row on the channel. Postseason play is a lot different though. So many opt-outs and coaching changes. You never know teams' motivations, whether it's gearing up for next year or trying to win one final game. But with that said, let's dive into picking each game as they stand, starting this Saturday. First up, Saturday we'll head to the FCS for the classic Celebration Bowl between South Carolina State and Prairie View A&M. This looks like an incredible matchup on paper. Prairie View has dominated this season with their run game and defense, but mostly their defense, as it's just unreal this season, ranking top 3 in a ton of defensive metrics in the FCS. South Carolina State has a great defense too, but not to this level, and their offense relies pretty heavily on a strong passing game, which is an area this Prairie View A&M defense has dominated in, ranking number 1 in the country in the FCS. So looking at this matchup, while SC State's got an edge with a more explosive offense, I see their defense being the one that's more likely to be worn down throughout this game. A consistent rushing attack can really get to a defense in a different way, and this Prairie View team just matches up so well here. So I'm going to take them to win this one, 23-20. Next up is America's game, Army-Navy at 3 p.m. Saturday. Navy's the far superior team in this matchup this season, but Army-Navy is almost always an instant classic and a toss-up as to who wins. Army's defense has been good enough this year to assume they'll keep this game fairly low scoring as usual and make it a really fun one that goes deep into the fourth. They've played up to their level of competition on a few occasions this season and have really only struggled against pass-heavy offenses. I just think with the nature of this game, the familiarity, the meaning behind winning this game, and of course potential weather, we are in for a one-score finish, or at least one that's very close for a while. But I do think you have to side with the better team and more consistent one here, with both sides being fairly healthy. So I think Navy does prevail in the end, 20-17. Our first FBS bowl game of the year comes Saturday night from Los Angeles, the LA Bowl between Boise State and Washington. Maddox Madsen made his return for the Mountain West title, and the Boise offense ran all over UNLV. This team is starting to roll again in recent weeks and put the short, rough stretch into the rearview mirror. It's been an off year for Boise, honestly, but this team still has a lot of talent and potential. Star tackle Cage Casey may miss this game after declaring for the draft, which would be a big loss, and Washington seems to be near full strength for this game according to Jed Fish, but they've been a bit banged up lately, which could match that Casey loss for Boise. And Boise's defense has forced quite a few takeaways this season, and I think they can hang with this Washington team on both ends. It really comes down to which Washington team shows up. Seeing the way Boise's played lately, I think this one's going to be closer, but I do think Washington wins 34-27. The next bowl matchup is the Salute to Veterans Bowl on Tuesday the 16th between Troy and Jacksonville State. I think this is a very good matchup. It's an in-state matchup with both teams from Alabama. There seems to not be any opt-outs on the Jacksonville side, but if they were to lose a guy like Cam Cook for the portal prior to this game, my pick would move somewhat firmly onto Troy. But with Goose Crowder going down last week and Tay Meadows in the portal, I think this Troy offense could struggle a bit in this game. Tucker Kilcrease is a very experienced backup quarterback, but not the true QB1 of this team, and Jacksonville State is going to want to finish strong after choking away their Conference USA title game to Kennesaw State in the final moments of that game. To this point, they don't have many guys out for this game, and we're only a few days away now, so I actually don't mind taking the underdog in Jacksonville State. The Troy defense can be a challenge, but they've had success on the ground against pretty much everybody, so give me the Gamecocks here in a slight upset, 24-21. Old Dominion and South Florida face off in the Cure Bowl on the 17th, with both star quarterbacks opting out of this game. It's unfortunate, as Colton Joseph versus Byron Brown would have been an elite watch, but both squads will be on to backups. And with the O.J. Arnold injury recently for ODU, I think that definitely impacts their side a bit more. But what really throws a wrench in this game is a potential late opt-out South Florida could face. Alex Golesh is not coaching this game as he's getting started at Auburn, so that could obviously cause some other guys to enter the portal before this game kicks off. As it stands, not many have yet, and I think South Florida was the deeper and more talented team between these two. ODU's defense is great and could cause a lot of problems for that backup, but I'm still going to trust a talented edge and take them to win this game, 30-24. Also on Wednesday is a 68 Ventures Bowl from Alabama. It'll be Louisiana taking on Delaware, who's making their first ever bowl appearance as it's year 1 in the FBS. Neither team has any big opt-outs currently. There are a few injuries, but nothing super major and game-changing on either side. I think Louisiana may have a slight talent edge as a team, but as I mentioned, the first ever bowl aspect for Delaware could be big, as I feel like they'll be super fired up to try and pick up a win here. This Louisiana defense may be a very tough matchup though, as they've played a lot better in the second half of the year, but I think the offensive firepower the Blue Hens have can help them a lot in this game. They'll be down their top running back, but they've had depth, and the passing game is a very solid one. Lunch Winfield has been such a weapon for Louisiana, though. I do expect this game to be a pretty high-scoring one. It wouldn't shock me going either way, but I just love the storyline for Delaware and their first bowl appearance, getting it done. So I'm going to take them close, 31-28. The Xbox Bowl is a standalone game on Thursday between Missouri State and Arkansas State, which looked like a very good matchup, but maybe a bit less now as Missouri State's head coach has officially taken the Coastal Carolina job. There could obviously be opt-outs that follow that move, but even without any, I think this Arkansas State team is a pretty good one. Good enough to maybe take this game anyways if they were full strength with the Bears coaching. So for Arkansas State, it's pretty much full strength, and I don't have any new major injuries so far. They've been super competitive towards the top of the Sun Belt all season, and we're basically a game away from heading to the championship. You obviously have to have that first bowl game effect with Missouri State here as well, but after losing the head coach and being in a bit of a transition phase, I think it's worth looking the other way this time. I valued Arkansas State here more anyways, and the coaching stability I do think will matter. So I'm going to roll with them to win this one, 33-30. Next is the Myrtle Beach Bowl between Western Michigan and Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State has been a great story all season and absolutely could have the talent to continue that story throughout this game. But this Western Michigan team has really just ran through the MAC this year. They competed with North Texas early on this season, and I just think they're the better team here by around a touchdown or so. The defense has been very strong and has limited running quarterbacks and defended the pass well. That can obviously mean a tougher game for Amari Odom, who's shown a ton of dog this season, stepping up for the Owls. And the offensive versatility Western has shown is something Kennesaw hasn't stopped a ton this season on the other end. I think the upside of the Western passing game, just being a lot stronger than Jacksonville State's, makes it a much different matchup than that one-dimensional rushing attack they stuffed last week. And that's what eventually will lead Western to taking this game, in my opinion. I'll go 28-20 for a final. The Gasparilla Bowl this year is between Memphis and NC State. Memphis could have some late opt-outs here as Ryan Silverfield left for the Arkansas job. I'm not a huge fan of his coaching, honestly, and it's been a couple weeks since that move was announced, and not much has happened on the opt-out and portal front for Memphis so far. So honestly, I expect them to have most of their impact players, and for NC State, it looks the same right now, but there are several potential opt-outs with NFL futures like Justin Jolly, Hollywood Smothers, and some defensive guys. We'll see what happens there, but as it stands now, this Memphis team has competed with Power 5 teams consistently and even beat Arkansas this year. NC State did not look like a team that couldn't lose a game like this season, so I do think Memphis hangs around and maybe even flirts with the upset. I'm going to lean towards NC State though with that offense, with the chance they get all their guys to play. So I'm going to go with a 34-31 final. On to the 22nd, we've got just one game, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl on the Boise Blue Turf as Washington State takes on Utah State. Washington State head coach Jimmy Rogers was a one and done for the school as he took the Iowa State opening after Matt Campbell left it vacant. So obviously some late opt-out potential is there, but I've actually liked this team's growth a lot this season. They nearly beat a now playoff team in James Madison on the road a few weeks ago and have looked pretty good in most of their games this season, even against great competition like Ole Miss and Virginia. This Utah State team is very underrated and has a great offense, but they'll be down one of their top weapons of the portal at receiver, and I kind of think this Washington State defense is a tough matchup as is. I like getting a team I see as slightly better or around the same level as an underdog and a neutral site, honestly. Even with the loss of Rodgers as head coach, they haven't hired a replacement yet, so maybe that throws off some of the focus, but I think these players will look to perform as usual and sneak out a close one. I'll go 27-24 final for the Cougs. We've got a triple header Tuesday, starting with the Boca Raton Bowl with Toledo and Louisville. Toledo lost their head coach to UConn recently and is definitely at risk of some portal entries and even some NFL opt-outs, including a stud safety, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who's got a Senior Bowl invite. As of right now, not much has happened, but this Louisville team is for sure beat up. RB1, 2, and 3 are all out for Louisville right now. Maybe someone suits up, but on top of that, star wide receiver Chris Bell is also opted out for this offense, so it's super beat up for this game. Toledo's defense has been absolutely dominant in the MAC this season, has actually looked pretty decent against Power 5 competition as well. I think this Louisville team just won't really come to play the way Toledo may, and it could lead this game to be a lot lower scoring and a lot closer than Louisville wants it to be. There may even be some value on a Toledo upset, but I do think the talent gap will be enough, especially without Toledo's coach. So I'm going to rock with Louisville to win a closer game than they'd hoped for, 24-17. Next is a New Orleans Bowl between Western Kentucky and Southern Miss. Western Kentucky has a pretty clear advantage in this game as Southern Miss is going to be without Charles Huff, who took the Memphis job. They did, however, hire their offensive coordinator Blake Anderson, who used to be the Utah State head coach, as their new head coach for the future. Opt-outs are obviously possible, but the continuity does help with that a lot, elevating Blake Anderson to the head man now. So I don't expect too many opt-outs here, honestly. But regardless, the way that Southern Miss has played the last few weeks of the season just wasn't very inspiring football, and Western Kentucky is a very solid team with a great offense that has played pretty well all season, even through some injuries. I expect them to take this game just playing better football as of late and with less uncertainty around their program's future. I don't think that defense is going to matter too much unless Southern Miss flips a switch. So give me Western Kentucky, 31-23. The night game is UNLV and Ohio in the Frisco Bowl. Ohio put their head coach Brian Smith on unpaid leave for unknown reasons early on this month. We'll have to see if that has any impact on players exiting this game or not. I personally don't think it will, but you never know in today's college football. But I think that obviously gives UNLV an edge as already the better team in my opinion. Ohio has a lot of offensive firepower with Bangura, Navarro, and Hendricks. But if any of those players were to miss this game, it would obviously severely impact their chances of winning. UNLV's offense is absolutely elite and has done extremely well all season other than the Boise State matchups. And I think that Boise State team is just miles ahead of this Ohio team, which isn't even one of the best teams in the MAC anymore this season. I feel as if UNLV is at least one score, if not multiple, better than this Ohio team, and just have a lot less uncertainty heading into this game with no opt-out to this point as well. So I feel pretty comfortable picking UNLV to win this one with too much offensive firepower, 35-24. On to Christmas Eve, the Hawaii Bowl is a standalone game as Cal visits a hosting Hawaii. That's a pretty big advantage, basically playing a home game here, and Cal did fire their head coach Justin Wilcox. But the vibes seem pretty fine around the program, especially with JKS, who locked in his return for next season amid some portal rumors. I think this program is in a good spot despite firing their head coach, which is pretty rare to see, and I think a lot of people are going to fade them in this game because of that aspect, when it really shouldn't be as big of an impact as normal head coach firings would be. They do have several injuries they're dealing with, but I just feel like they're at a different level than this Hawaii team. Hawaii is a very good team in the Mountain West, but the Mountain West just is not the ACC. We've seen Cal compete with some of the better teams in the ACC, and not just Stanford. In terms of common opponents, it actually does favor Hawaii, but they've had some rough losses as well this year, so I just don't see this as a game that Cal should lose. Of course, it's college football, and anything could happen with opt-outs in bowl games, but I like Cal in this spot. I'm going to take them 31-27. No games on Christmas Day as usual, so next up is a 3-game Friday slate, starting with Central Michigan and Northwestern in the Game Above Sports Bowl in Detroit. Central Michigan was a great story in the MAC this year. A lot of people thought they would be pretty bad, but their rushing attack was unstoppable, and they had a very strong season in the conference. Northwestern can kind of say the same. I personally predicted them to be a bottom 3 team in the conference, and they really surprised me with the way they could run the football, and their defense was very good at times this season. But right now, their running back room is pretty banged up, and so is their defensive line. That makes this game a lot tougher, as Central can run the ball on this team for sure. I just feel like this talent gap is still a thing here. Northwestern is a fairly well-coached team. They've hung with some big fish this season in the Big Ten, and I don't really think they're going to be too surprised by Central Michigan's offense, as they've had some time to game plan for it, and they always seem to do pretty well during bowl season. So I still think that they can take this game by double digits. Lower scoring though. I'll go 27-14. Minnesota drew New Mexico in the Rate Bowl from Phoenix, Arizona. Jason Eck has done an unbelievable job as New Mexico's head coach in year one, getting them to a bowl game and having a fantastic season in the Mountain West that nearly ended up in a conference title appearance. Minnesota's definitely a beatable opponent for them from the looks of it too. They've been injured pretty much all year long, and there are some injury updates we still need before we fully commit on this game. But there doesn't look to be any major injuries on their sideline right now. I think this game is going to be pretty close, maybe even back and forth. Minnesota's ground attack is very good. New Mexico has a decent defense, but most of their wins have come thanks to their offense this year. I think Minnesota's defensive talent has just a pretty sizable edge here, and with the youth they have, they're going to really want to push themselves offensively in this game. And star running back Darius Taylor is a weapon of all weapons in that backfield now that he's finally healthy. So if he's a go for this game, I kind of expect him to roll through this defense, and I think it's going to end up leading Minnesota to a victory. I'm going 24-20 for a final. Lastly, on the 26th is the First Responder Bowl in Dallas. It's UTSA taking on FIU. The FIU quarterback situation is a little bit unknown for this game right now, as Pasansky was injured a couple weeks ago and former starter Keon Jenkins started the finale. That definitely could throw a wrench in this game. UTSA is banged up, but not really at major positions. I've taken FIU quite a bit this season, but that was in the Conference USA, and UTSA has been a very competitive team in the American this year, which is a far better level of competition. This team's pulled off some shocking wins and has had some massive offensive performances against simply better teams than FIU. I don't really expect many opt-outs for this UTSA team either, so I kind of think this is a defense they can roll over. And on the other end, it shouldn't be an offense that can put up 30 plus on them unless they're just really not into this game. So I think double digits is definitely a possibility for this UTSA team, and it should be a big day of offense for them as well. So I'll go with a 37-23 win for the Roadrunners. Saturday the 27th is a massive slate of bowl games. We'll start early with Pitt and ECU from Maryland in a Military Bowl. Pitt is a little banged up heading into this game, but they haven't had too many opt-outs or injuries to worry about. And on the East Carolina side, they're missing both their offensive and defensive coordinators. The OC went to Ole Miss, and their DC went to South Florida. Neither will be coaching in this game, so there are obviously big blows, as those are the play colors on both sides of the football. So there's going to be a lot of variance in this game, despite ECU having quite a bit of talent that can definitely compete with Pitt. This Pitt team, although they got blown out by Miami, has been very good this season for the most part, and their offense has absolutely dominated the lesser teams in the ACC. I just think there's a very clear talent edge here for Pitt, as long as they come to play in this game. They should be able to handle ECU's defense, as no matter how good they've been this season, Pitt should just be able to outmuscle them. Keep a close eye on opt-outs, but Pitt's defense can match up well here, and I know they can score on the other end. So I'm going to roll with Pitt, 34-24. Next up is the Pinstripe Bowl from Yankee Stadium between Penn State and Clemson. This would have been an elite matchup in the preseason, and we get it here in bowl season after two very underwhelming seasons. Both teams are probably going to deal with a ton of opt-outs. We've already seen Zane Durant, Nick Singleton, and Zakee Wheatley opt out for this game for Penn State. And on the Clemson side, they've had tons of players declare for the draft already, and more expected to as well. On top of that, they were already pretty banged up, so I just don't really love this spot for them. I think Penn State might just be the better team straight up and have a deeper roster that could be less impacted by NFL declarations. They've been without their coach for the majority of the season at this point, so there's nothing really there that's going to surprise me on top of missing players. Getting 4.5 points here feels like a little bit of a gift, as I think this game is more closer to a toss-up or even a Penn State edge. I've been a believer in Clemson for a lot of this season, but Penn State is still just as, if not more talented than them in terms of who's coming back and playing in this game. So we'll see what happens, but I do like Penn State a bit, 23-20. Over to the other ballpark, the Fenway Bowl brings us UConn and Army this season. UConn's taken a big hit so far with Jim Mora heading to Colorado State. He's not coaching in this game. Their RB1 Cam Edwards is in the portal, and they're also missing 3 starters on the offensive line and 3 defenders who have entered the portal as well. And Skylar Bell may miss this game as well, as he has a Senior Bowl invite. But on the bright side, I do think Joe Fagnano plays, which is a big one that really matters for them. For Army, we're not really sure yet, as the Navy game still has to play out, and we'll see what the injury situation looks like after that. But I really just don't think this Army team has been that good at all this season, and UConn's pretty substantially a better football team. It really just depends on who plays for UConn, as if they're out basically the entire offense, it's going to be a lot harder for Fagnano to operate. But if they still have a couple key players around them, I think they have a shot to win this game as long as they can score points. Army's offense just isn't very explosive, and it's one UConn's backup should be able to handle filling in for a few starters. So I think UConn takes this one in an upset, unless a lot more changes, 27-23. Our next game is probably the best game of this slate. Georgia Tech and BYU should be a great matchup in the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. I wouldn't expect many opt-outs here, as honestly not many guys are seen as high-level draft picks from these teams, but anything is possible as the game is a ways away still. Georgia Tech lost their OC to Florida, which could certainly have an impact on the offense, but as long as Haynes King is playing, this team is going to be able to score. BYU is a very stout defense, though, that just could not get over the Texas Tech juggernaut hurdle this season. Their 2 losses came to them in blowout fashion this season, but they basically handled all other competition. Georgia Tech's defense has been really bad for much of the year, besides the Georgia game, but that's a completely different scenario as it's their arch rival. I think that edge BYU has with knowing Bear Backmeyer is playing on top of having a much more trustworthy defense is going to be enough to pick them in this spot. I'm expecting a great game, but one that BYU should take, as this is not Texas Tech. I'll go 31-24 Cougs for a final. Next is a Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. Miami, Ohio is going to take on Fresno State. Miami, Ohio is really tough to back right now with the quarterback situation they're dealing with. Daquan Finley, the team early, put them in a tough spot going to the backup Henry Hessen, and he was not looking good at all, so they pivoted to a freshman who ended up winning them 2 games against Buffalo and Ball State, but completed just 50% of his passes against those bad defenses, and then got destroyed early on in the MAC title, which forced their hand going back to Hessen. The offense is just super one-dimensional now, especially with Cam Perry entering the portal, who is arguably their top receiving threat. Fresno's offense just has more consistency, and they've got enough on defense to assume they can handle this likelier, heavier running game as well. So it's Fresno State for me here. I just think they're not only the better football team, but a more balanced one. So I'm going 24-16 for a final. San Diego State and North Texas face off in the New Mexico Bowl in Albuquerque this year, both with some variance, as North Texas head coach Eric Morris took the Oklahoma State job, and San Diego State's defensive coordinator took the Nebraska DC job. There hasn't been much news on the opt-out front yet, but it really would not shock me to see Mestamaker, Hawkins, and some other guys decide to sit out and enter the portal before this game. If North Texas is at full strength, I do believe they have a strong chance of winning this game, as San Diego State's defense is obviously going to take a slight hit. But Hawkins is also coming off an injury in the American title and could easily miss this game for that reason as well. I think that has a big impact on their offense and makes me really not want to take a side in this game until we get a clear picture of who's in and who's out. But San Diego State's defense is a really good unit regardless, and North Texas really struggles to stop good running games. I feel like they'll be in control of the football and control the pace enough to get the win with that rushing attack that they have. So I'm going to take the Aztecs 30-27. Missouri and Virginia face off in the Gator Bowl this year, a game I'm actually really looking forward to watching. Bo Pribula and Ahmad Hardy against Chandler Morris and a pretty deep rushing attack. Virginia nearly made the playoffs but fell short in overtime of the ACC title, and they lost their wide receiver 1 to injury in the process of that game and have since lost their starting corner to the portal. Missouri hasn't had any opt-outs yet so far, so a slight advantage there for them, but in terms of their matchup, I actually think Missouri is just a better team in general. Hardy's one of the best, if not the best, running back Virginia has seen all season long, and Missouri's defense is one I really trust to limit Virginia's production. I just think there's a gap between these two teams as is, nothing major, but enough to believe Missouri gets the win. They've got some youth that is definitely playing in this game, and like I said, a game-changing back in Ahmad Hardy who can give Virginia one of their best tests they've faced. Competing with elite SEC teams is just different than winning in the ACC this season, so it's Missouri for me here, 27-17. Our final game on the 27th is LSU and Houston in the Texas Bowl in Houston. Basically a home game for Houston, who also looks to be at full strength for this game, and getting a matchup of this size has to be really exciting for them. It's a chance to take down a big program regardless of what they've looked like this season. As for LSU, I don't see the energy looking the same at all. They probably won't match that intensity, and they've got a ton of key injuries they're dealing with still, and are more than likely fully focused on their future with Lane Kiffin, pivoting their focus to the offseason portal and positioning themselves for early success in 2026. I haven't liked much of what I've seen from LSU's backups on offense, and the defense being out some very elite key players is not a good sign for this game. Houston was definitely not a top 25 team this season in my opinion, but they've found ways to win games and reach that ranking, and should be much more fired up here with maybe more crowd support, which is definitely a rarity for LSU opponents. So give me Houston to take this one, 23-17. Georgia Southern will take on conference opponent in Appalachian State this bowl season, as the Birmingham Bowl was the final bowl game to be finalized this year, as nobody wanted to take this slot after a few teams opted out of playing. But App State took on the opportunity despite having a 5-win season, and it's a team they're familiar with. Georgia Southern actually beat App State this year at App State. It was a pivotal moment in their season as they went on to win 3 out of 4 to clinch this bowl berth, and honestly, I think we see the same result here, if not a bit easier for them. This offense is very good, and App State's defense is one they can walk all over. And on the other end, with A.J. Swan entering the portal as well as half their defense, this is a very rough spot for the Mountaineers to be in. I just think they won't be as prepared for this game and have a lot more variance as a whole, with that portal advantage being such a huge bonus for Georgia Southern, so I'm going to take them here, 38-28. Louisiana Tech and Coastal Carolina is this year's Independence Bowl matchup. These teams had sort of opposite seasons, with Coastal starting the year looking dreadful on offense and flipping a switch halfway through, while Louisiana Tech looked like the best team in the Conference USA early on, and a couple of injuries at the quarterback position started a downward spiral they escaped out of late, but not in time as they finished just 7-5. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this offense is just simply better with Blake Baker at quarterback, and it really relies on the run game to dominate when Kukuk is in at quarterback. Luckily, Coastal Carolina's defense is a problem stopping teams this season, but their offense has come alive, and they've been playing their best ball arguably in the second half of the year. To me, this is a matchup Louisiana Tech probably wins with their rushing attack, but I don't see the advantage as wide enough to think a blowout's coming. The upset potential is there, so I'm going to take Coastal to keep it close. 31-28 La Tech though. Tennessee takes on Illinois in this year's Music City Bowl in Nashville. A fun matchup of an explosive Tennessee offense going up against a pretty balanced Illinois team that's had a lot of ups and downs this season. From beating USC and Duke to losing to Wisconsin and getting destroyed by Indiana, this Illinois team did not live up to their expectations and is now a bowl loss away from a lot of questions within their fan base over the future of the program, in my opinion. This was a pretty talented roster that just lacked playmaking and some defensive ability, and it cost them this year, but they do have great veteran leadership that can definitely compete in this game. Tennessee's going to be without star receiver Chris Brazell for this game as he's opted out for the NFL, but the offense is still going to be pretty explosive, and I think they're just a better football team on both sides of the ball than Illinois. So I'm going to trust that opinion of mine and roll with the Vols, 34-27. USC TCU should be an explosive offensive matchup in the Alamo Bowl this year. USC's offense with an obvious edge, especially late in the season with just better performance than TCU's. But some injuries to the USC secondary should make life easier on Josh Hoover and his receivers, who for most of the season were a very effective group, and they took down some great Big 12 teams. And they finished the year strong, taking down Houston and Cincinnati, the last game being a blowout over Cincinnati, which was really impressive. And I think that gives me a good indication that they're going to play the way I know they can against this USC defense. On the other end, though, without Bud Clark, I really don't see this TCU team getting many stops. USC's firepower with Maava throwing to Lemon and Lane is just ridiculous. I wouldn't be shocked to see either or both guys sit out, but they've got a great depth at receiver regardless, and King Miller is a weapon of a running back as well. Lincoln Riley is an incredible offensive mind, and so even if guys sit out here, I believe USC's offense is going to be tough to stop. And if it comes down to a final drive, I trust them to find a way to win the game. So give me USC close, 33-30. Now on to New Year's Eve. We'll start with the ReliaQuest Bowl from Tampa as Vanderbilt will take on Iowa. Diego Pavia up against one of the better defenses in the country, who plays with such a slow pace and can limit the amount of time Pavia spends with the ball in his hands. This should be a great matchup of styles, and honestly, it's one that I really think Iowa has a chance to win. While Vanderbilt has been impressive, they also have their shortcomings, and we've seen this offense be limited by teams like Missouri, Alabama, and Texas early on in those games. And I can definitely see this Iowa defense doing the same. And regardless, I expect this game to be close, but at the same time, something's telling me Vandy comes out fired up to prove that they shouldn't have been left out of the playoffs, and they end up the ones grabbing the win as Vandy continues their historic season for the program, 28-24. This year's Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl from El Paso will be between Arizona State and Duke. Arizona State is an absolute mess right now heading into this game. They've got a ton of potential opt-outs for draft declarations and portal entries, as well as some key injuries that they suffered throughout the season, not to mention some early rumors of Kenny Dillingham being a candidate for Michigan's job. I don't think that matters at this point right now, as it's super early in the process there, and there are plenty of other candidates that could be more likely. But regardless, Arizona State is in a very tough spot here right now with what they're going to be missing. I don't love this Duke team from a betting perspective, but they were genuinely good this season and just blew so many games with turnovers. They have the talent to outduel a very vulnerable Arizona State team that could be missing half the lineup by this time. I don't really see Duke dealing with that same problem. They've got a few NFL guys in their roster, but I still believe it's a better spot for them than ASU. And I do believe Mensa plays in this game. So give me Duke here, 35-31. Up next, we'll go over the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando between Michigan and Texas. This looked like an absolute banger early on, but Michigan is in a very avoidable spot to me now. The Sharon Moore situation was shocking and could lead to some portal entries and NFL opt-outs before this game. Texas could deal with a lot as well with their NFL prospects, but Michigan much more so now. Michigan performed well under Biff Poggi, but the uncertainty with the program is definitely a new wrinkle. If they hire a coach before this game, let's say a DeBoer or a Dillingham, and Bryce plays and doesn't consider the portal, I think Michigan does have a chance here, but with all the possibilities and the current state of the program as is, this offense is just far too young to expect them to focus up and score on Texas. And the defense is good, but they may be missing some key pieces that will allow Texas to have their way eventually. So give me Texas here comfortably, unless something major changes with a coaching hire and a big opt-out advantage for Michigan, 31-20. Our final New Year's Eve matchup is a less exciting one, Utah and Nebraska in the Las Vegas Bowl. Utah has basically ran all over teams in the Big 12 towards the end of the year, and while Nebraska did get bowl eligible this year, they've had a ton of injuries, coaching turnover, and a tough opt-out and star running back Emmett Johnson declaring for the draft. This game spread sits nearly at 3 scores right now, and for good reason. But I will say this Nebraska defense is a genuinely good unit and has held some good offenses in check this season. And on the other end, TJ Lateef looks pretty comfortable at quarterback and can move this offense a bit. Any chance they have in this game is going to come down from their defense doing a good job at limiting Utah here. There may be some big opt-outs on the Utah side, as they have several offensive linemen looking like elite draft prospects, and that could have a major impact on this run game's effectiveness. So with that expectation, I'm going to take Nebraska to hang around, but Utah wins it in Kyle Whittingham's final game, 34-21. Our first non-playoff bowl matchup of the year is Texas State and Rice from the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth. Rice's option attack can be tough to stop, but Texas State's going to have a full month of prep for it. That option attack can usually win on a week-to-week basis as a tough prep, but it gets easier to stop when you have ample time to plan for it. This game's also pretty clean portal and opt-out wise. Rice is down a receiver, but like I said, they are a run-heavy offense anyways. Texas State's defense has been really rough this season, but again, this should be a solid spot for them, and their offense has lit up pretty much everyone. I don't expect much to change on that end, as the offense is fairly young, and Brad Jackson should be able to light up this Rice team with his arm. So unless Texas State preps pretty terribly and still can't stop Rice's ground game, I think they take this one by double digits, 41-27. Next is the Liberty Bowl as Navy takes on Cincinnati. We obviously still have to see what happens in the Army-Navy game to get a better grasp on this game, but even at full strength for Navy, I honestly believe the Cincinnati team is just as good, if not better. They've had some issues towards the end of the year, but Brennan Sorsby should be healthy finally for this game as long as he doesn't opt out of it. And that impact on this offense should be big. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for a while, but has played through it. So a month off is big for him, and I think this Navy defense has just been gashed too much this season to expect them to slow down Cincinnati a ton here, especially with his playmaking ability. And on the other end, Cincinnati's defense is nothing special, but it's not an awful unit. Definitely would have been one of the better ones in the American, where Navy plays, and so I still give them an edge here over a fully healthy Navy squad. I'll take him as a dog here, 28-23. Now on to everyone's favorite, the Duke's Mayo Bowl from Charlotte as Wake Forest takes on Mississippi State. Obviously a big geographical advantage for Wake Forest being much closer to home, but from a match perspective, I think this game swings the other way to me. Both teams look to be near full strength as it stands. Mississippi State happy to be included in bowl season with 5 wins and a defensive coordinator fired. but an offense that has looked good for much of the season and actually looked even better in the Egg Bowl, starting a freshman quarterback over Blake Shapen. He just brings a different playmaking feel to the offense, and I think it elevates the ceiling here a little bit. Obviously, it also lowers the floor too, but Wake Forest is not an elite team like Ole Miss where you can just get beat by talent eventually. Wake can run the football really well, but I don't see the type of impact from their passing game that's going to overly challenge Mississippi State here to make it a tough game to win. So give me the Bulldogs and basically a road game, 30-24. Our final game of non-playoff bowl season is Arizona and SMU in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, a super fun-looking offensive matchup between Noah Fifita and Kevin Jennings. Arizona finished their season about as good as they could have hoped for, winning 5 straight games, and it nearly was 6 as they lost to Houston on the road by 3 the week prior. This offense really came alive and carried the way to wins, but the defense did their part as well, holding Arizona State to just 7, Cincinnati to 24, and maybe most shockingly, Baylor to just 17. 3 very talented offenses they shut down, and this bowl opponent SMU may end up no different. I really like the ability Kevin Jennings brings to the table, but his weapons and playmakers haven't been exceptional this season. And I think this offense is a little vulnerable to struggling against good defenses. And on the flip side, Arizona hasn't really been stopped by anyone lately. As of right now, no major opt-outs are expected, so I feel comfortable siding with Arizona to make it 6 straight to close out the year. I think it'll be a little bit closer, just 1 score. I'll go 35-28. That's it for my college football bowl picks. Let me know your thoughts on any of these games down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
BARK Radio.